Acute eyes also come with a hefty drawback. As the wedge tailed eagle demonstrates, animals can achieve sharper vision by having smaller and more densely packed photoreceptors. But each receptor now collects light over a smaller area and is thus less sensitive. These qualities, sensitivity and resolution, seesaw against each other. No eye can excel at both. An eagle might be able to spot a far off rabbit in broad daylight, but its acuity plummets as the sun sets. There are no nocturnal eagles. Conversely, lions and hyenas might not be able to resolve a zebra's stripes at a distance, but their vision is sensitive enough to hunt one at night. They and many other animals have prioritized sensitivity over acuity. As ever, eyes evolved to suit the needs of their owners. Some animals simply don't need to see crisp images, and some animals don't need to see images at all. Daniel Spicer never thought he would spend his career trying to empathize with scallops. When he started graduate school in 2004, he thought about them the same way most people do, as lumps of meat on a plate, he tells me. But those appetizing, pan-seared lumps are merely the muscles that scallops use to close their shells. Look at a full, living scallop, and you'll see a very different animal. And that animal will see you, too. Each half of a scallop's fan-shaped shell has eyes arrayed along its inner edge, dozens in some species, and up to 200 in others. In the bay scallop, the eyes look like neon blueberries. Spicer finds them funny and horrifying and charming, all at once. It is strange enough that scallops have eyes when most other bivalves, like mussels and oysters, do not. It's even stranger that those eyes, as Mike Land showed in the 1960s, are complex. Each one sits at the end of a mobile tentacle. Each has a little pupil. It's wild and creepy to see all of them opening and closing at the same time, Spicer says. Light passes through the pupil and hits the back of the scallop's eye, where it is reflected by a curved mirror. The mirror is a precisely tiled array of square crystals that collectively focus light onto the scallop's retinas. That's retinas, plural. There are 2 per eye, and they are about as different as 2 animal retinas could be. Footnote. There are 2 major groups of animal photoreceptors, known as ciliary and rhabdomeric. Both use opsins, but they function in very different ways. Scientists used to think that ciliary receptors were only found in vertebrates, and rhabdomeric ones were only in invertebrates. But that's not true. Both kind of receptors are found in both, and both are found in the scallop, which has one retina full of ciliary photoreceptors and one full of rhabdomeric ones. Why? It's unclear, although one retina appears to be used to detect moving objects and the other is used for selecting habitats. Between them, they have thousands of photoreceptors, which gives them enough spatial resolution to detect small objects. Their optics are really good, Spicer says. Footnote. It's not that the scallop eyes are perfect. When light enters the eye, it must first get through the retina before the mirror can reflect and focus it. The retina gets 2 shots at absorbing that light, once on its unfocused initial pass, and again in its more focused form. This means that the eye sees a focused image against a background of blurry haze. But why? When scallops are threatened, they can swim away, opening and closing their shells like panicked castanets. Beyond these rare moments of action, though, they mostly sit on the sea floor, sieving edible particles from the water. They're glorified clams, according to Sanka Johnson. Why do they need such a complicated eye, let alone dozens or hundreds of them? What does a scallop use its vision for? To find out, Spicer ran an experiment that he called Scallop TV. He strapped their shells to small seats, placed them in front of a monitor, and showed them computer-generated movies of small, drifting particles. It was such a ridiculous setup that no one seriously thought that it would work. But it did. If the particles were large enough and moving slowly enough, the scallops opened their shells, as if ready to feed. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen, Johnson tells me. At the time, Spicer thought that scallops must use their eyes to spot potential food. Now, he thinks something else is happening. Interspersed between their eyes are tentacles that scallops use to smell molecules in the water. Spicer thinks that they use smell to recognize predators like starfish and vision to detect things that are simply worth an investigative sniff. When they opened their shells in response to Scallop TV, they weren't trying to feed, but were seeking to explore. My guess is that we were seeing scallops being curious, Spicer says. Spicer suspects that scallop vision works in a very different way than ours. Our brains combine the overlapping information from our two eyes into a single scene. A scallop could do the same across 100 eyes, but that seems unlikely, given how crude its brain is. Instead, each eye might simply tell the brain where it has detected something moving or not. Think of the scallop's brain as a security guard watching a bank of 100 monitors, each connected to a motion-sensing camera. If the cameras detect something, the guard sends sniffer dogs to investigate. Here's the catch. The cameras may be state-of-the-art, but the images they capture are not sent to the guard. All the guard sees on the monitor is a warning light for every camera that has spotted something. If Spicer is right about this bizarre setup, it means that even though each individual scallop eye has good spatial resolution, the animal itself might not have spatial vision. It knows when eyes in a certain region of its body have detected something, but it has no visual image of that object. It doesn't experience a movie in its head the same way we do. It sees without scenes. This kind of vision is probably closer to our sense of touch than anything we experience with our eyes. We don't create a tactile scene of the world, even though we can feel with every part of our skin. Indeed, we largely ignore those sensations until something pokes us, or vice versa. And when we feel something unexpected, our most common reaction is to turn and look at it. Perhaps for a scallop, smell, not vision, is the fine-grained exploration sense, and vision, not touch, is the crude, whole-body detection sense. Footnote. This idea is especially compelling because the eyes are actually modified chemosensory tentacles. It's a visual system jury-rigged from one originally used for smell and touch. But if that's the case, why does each individual eye have such good resolution? Why do sophisticated components like the mirrors and double retinas exist? Why are there so many eyes when just a few could cover the entire space around the scallop's shell? Why have such good eyes evolved in an animal whose brain can barely handle the information they convey? Footnote. In 1964, Mike Land, who was still a graduate student, looked into a scallop's eye and saw an upside-down image of himself. That's how he discovered that each eye contains a focusing mirror. He later showed that the mirror consists of layered crystals and suggested, correctly, that the crystals are made of guanine, one of the building blocks of DNA. Guanine crystals don't naturally form squares, so the scallop must somehow control their growth. It's unclear how it manages this, or how it gets every crystal to the same exacting measurement, 74 billionths of a meter thick. No one knows. Sometimes I feel like I can almost get my mind around it and extend my empathy into scallops, Spicer tells me. But a lot of the time, I feel lost again. Footnote: scallops aren't the only animals with perplexing distributed vision. Scallops aren't the only animals with perplexing distributed vision. Chitons are mollusks that look like the disembodied forehead of a Klingon from Star Trek. Their bodies are covered in armored plates, and those plates are dotted with hundreds of small eyes. Fanworms look like colorful feather dusters extending from rocky tubes. Those plumes are tentacles, which teem with eyes. Giant clams look like, well, very big clams. Their meter-wide mantles contain several hundred eyes. Dan Eric Nielsen likens all of these eyes to burglar alarms. They detect nearby movement and encroaching shadows, so their owners know when to take defensive measures. The Chitons clamp down onto rocks. The fanworms pull their fans back into their tubes, and the giant clams close their shells. It's likely that, like the scallops, none of these animals sees scenes. Some animals might have the scallop's distributed vision without possessing eyes at all. The brittle star Ophiomastix wendtii looks like a skinny, spiny starfish, or perhaps like 5 centipedes wriggling out of a hockey rink. It doesn't have any obvious eyes, but it clearly sees. It will scuttle away from light, crawl toward shady crevices, and even change color after sunset. In 2018, Lauren Sumner Rooney showed that the brittle star has thousands of photoreceptors over the full lengths of its sinuous arms. It's as if the entire animal acts as a compound eye. Footnote: like brittle stars, sea urchins also seem to use their entire bodies as a crude eyeball. Each urchin is a spiky ball that crawls around on hundreds of tube feet. Its photoreceptors are on those feet, and they are shaded either by the animal's spines or by its hard exoskeleton. Its vision may not be especially sharp, but it can certainly amble toward dark shapes. Weirder still, it's only an eye during the day. When the sun is out, the brittle star expands sacs of pigment in its skin, which give it the deep red of a blood clot. At night, it shrinks these sacs and becomes pale gray and striped. When expanded, the pigment sacs block light from reaching the photoreceptors at certain angles. This gives each receptor the directionality of a stage 2 eye, and it gives the entire animal the spatial vision of a stage 3 eye. But when the pigment sacs contract at night, the photoreceptors are fully exposed. Unable to tell the direction of incoming light, their spatial vision no longer works. It knows when it's exposed to light, but it doesn't know how to get away from it, Sumner Rooney says. It's anyone's guess what the brittle star itself makes of this change. Unlike a scallop, it doesn't have a brain, just a decentralized ring of nerves surrounding its central disk. This ring coordinates the 5 arms, but doesn't command them. They mostly act on their own. It's as if the brittle star has the same weird system of cameras as the scallop, but without the security guard. The cameras are just signaling each other. Do they do so across the entire animal? Is each separate arm its own eye? Is each arm a swarm of semi-autonomous eyes that happen to be linked? It could be something so out there that we haven't even thought of it yet, Sumner Rooney tells me. Everything we know about animal vision to date relies on having an eye. We're basing everything on a century's worth of research on contiguous retinas, with photoreceptors that are close together and grouped. The brittle star violates a lot of these assumptions. With multitudes of eyes, no heads, and sometimes no brains, brittle stars and scallops all reveal how strange vision can be. An animal doesn't have to see a picture to be able to use vision, Sumner Rooney says, but humans are such visually driven creatures that trying to conceive of these completely alien systems is very hard. It is easier to imagine the visual worlds of more familiar creatures with heads and two eyes. But even then, we might miss what is right in front of us.